Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
I'm Karie, and I'm 51 years old.
What story are you here to share?
I'm just here to tell that the story that I lost my oldest son, Casey, when he was 19 years old to an accidental overdose, and how I picked up and got on through every day.
Who do you hope hears our conversation?
I hope that any parent that's lost a child, because that's just the most unnatural thing in the world, to lose a child before you go, and is struggling to get through each day, you can do it. So I hope that there's not a whole lot of parents out there going through it, but the ones that are, I hope they're able to hear this.
I'm Matthew, and welcome to Karie's edition of Learn from People Who Lived It. She was 29 when her dad died. She was 43 when her son died. Karie joins us today to share her journey on how that has impacted probably every ounce of your life since both of those incidents took place. Karie, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
So Dr. Frank is in the house with us as well, and we just want to start with you in the beginning and find out who Karie is, because I know you're here to talk about losing your son to an accidental overdose. And you said it in the onset, losing your son is so unnatural. And I think the reason that I really resonate with you, Karie, is because when my dad died, I watched my grandmother go through something. I saw something in her at his funeral, like a little bit of her soul got taken away, because it is such an unnatural thing to lose your children. They're not supposed to go before us. Your journey starts way before that. So tell me a little bit about you.
Sure. I'm actually native to Arizona and have lived here most of my life. Lived in Colorado for a little while when my dad took a job there. You know, had a really good childhood. Mom, dad, married for forever till he did pass away. And older sister, had a mom who stayed at home with us. Dad went off and worked and provided, sent to, Christian schools growing up.
So you look back on your childhood really fondly.
Definitely.
When you were 29 years old, you told me your father passed away. Can you tell me what was happening in your life, maybe a couple of years leading up to that?
Actually, he passed away the same year my youngest son was born. So it was 9 months after my youngest son was born that my dad passed away. So he did get to meet all of his grandsons, but didn't really get to stick around to watch him grow up, unfortunately. But my sister-in-law passed away the year before, at the age of 36 from a brain tumor. After fighting that for 10 years, she ended up dying from that. But it was, we were kind of, my husband and I were struggling in our marriage and stuff, and already at that point, but just trying to make things work and everything. But it was fine. Everything's always fine, and
Sure.
trying to live a life like I thought I should be, just like my mom and dad did, have the kids. I was staying home with them, with the boys, and enjoying it. I mean, I've got, the three boys, and I love being a stay-at-home mom. But my dad actually died from a pulmonary embolism. So it was pretty sudden. He was misdiagnosed as having pneumonia. So it was pretty sudden.
What was your relationship like with your father?
We were pretty close. He was a good German, stoic, stubborn man, but we connected with computers and things like that. We connected over that. He always, taught me how to build computers and, do all that stuff from early on. And so we always had a pretty good relationship that way. So
How old were you when you got married?
The first time I was 21.
Talk to me about the first time. What's that about?
So I was 19 when we got engaged, and I think it was really about stability. He was a police officer, and he, had the career, he had the stable job, he, could provide the things that I thought were very important. My parents were married at 21. So I thought, that again, that's what I had in mind, right? That they had a good marriage, a good family. I was raised well. So that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, of course. It's funny how we sort of chase that, and on one hand, it can be great. On the other, if there's some kind of crappy generational stuff happening there, well, then we just kind of keep our cycle going. So you mentioned that that was your first marriage, and were you married to that particular person when your dad died?
I was.
Yeah. How was that? Because you mentioned it was a little volatile even leading up to it. So what did losing your dad do to your relationship?
It just, it didn't help it at all. It just got worse. He wasn't really there for me. I was, like I said, I was raised in a Christian home and stuff, and he really wasn't. My husband at the time wasn't really a part of that. He was, going farther away from that. And so he wasn't very supportive. And then his mom ended up passing away, and then he just shut down. That was kind of the breaking point there. And then he became, like you said, volatile. It was just a really bad home environment. The kids, it was showing up in the boys, and I knew that I had to get away from that situation. When I saw the boys, it was just, I saw it repeating in the boys' behavior, the older boys and stuff, and it was really affecting my oldest, and that was really, really hard. And I didn't want to repeat things with them. I just didn't want them to be that way. I wanted them to see there was better things. And it was a really hard decision, because I really had the intention of marrying for life. And I know, and this is the weird thing, is that if my dad had been alive, I don't know that I could have divorced my first husband, because I felt that pressure, like I would have been disappointing my dad. But my mom was like, not that my dad would have wanted me to stay in that situation, but I think that was just self-inflicted. Of course. My mom was just so supportive. Still is, always has been. But
yeah, I think your dad probably would have been supportive too. It's something that we all do to ourselves, because you're a parent, right? So you can vouch for me when I say, at the end of the day, what you want is your kid's happiness. Definitely. And if that's what's going to happen, Dr. Frank wants to take you back to a moment.
You use the word supportive or not supportive. You use that several times. I mean, talk to me about what supportive means to you, because feelings for some people are hard. Emotions are hard. Emotions are scary. And you use phrases like he shut down, or he wasn't there, or he wasn't supportive. And there are a lot of people who are in your situation who are saying the same thing, but supportive means different things to different people. So talk to us about what that means for you, and what you would have wanted, what you didn't get.
Right. So, and and I don't know if this is just my little justification in my head for him, because, I don't know if it was with him being a police officer, and they're trained to, not to show those emotions on the job and stuff. I mean, that's a tough job. I get it. But he was not able to, he couldn't handle my emotions, much less his own. He wasn't able to even listen to me. Just listening, showing that support that way, much less comforting me in any intimate way or with words. Holding my hand and just hugging me and letting me cry on his shoulder. And I know from a guy's perspective too, I know that natural tendency to fix things comes out.
Yeah, we're pretty bad at that sometimes.
Right. I mean, yes, darn it. But I know that pressure is there too, and that's not something you can fix, but even just listening, it was hard. It was just so quiet.
You said something about the behavior started showing up in the kids. And is this maybe where we get a little closer to Casey's story?
Yes. Yeah. He really started retreating into his room a lot. I know that was a safe spot for him. My middle son got a little more showing aggression and stuff. He was more physically showing things physically.
Whereas Casey just disappeared.
Just disappeared. Just wanted to get away.
And I'm sure, like every parent, you walk into the room from time to time. You say, "Casey, what's up? Casey, do you want to talk? Casey, can we have a moment?" And in those moments, what is he giving you?
Nothing.
Yeah.
And that's what scared me the most I saw his dad in him, of nothing, just shutting down the no communication, the nothing, and then there'd be moments that you'd see him again, you'd see the good days, you'd see this or that. And, try get him counseling or this or that. And, nothing much was working for him.
What do you think he was holding on to, Karie? I mean, what do you think was shutting him down? I mean, now you're removed from it, right? You've had some years to think about these things. I mean, what do you think it was?
I don't know. It's been hard because now that he's not here, now that he's been gone, there's so much that it's hard to even go back to that time because there's so much of the what ifs that I don't know that I've really allowed myself to go down that path yet, because that's hard. That's nothing I can change now, but I know there's a lot that I'd probably do different. I would probably do for him what I wanted done for me and just sit there with him, as long as it would take. But you have other kids, you have, jobs, you have this and that and other things pulling you other ways. But, I think I would just sit there until finally break down and talk with me.
Let's get a little closer to this pivotal moment in your life where Casey has this accidental overdose. Is there anything keying you up to the moment that he's doing drugs or trying or at parties where this is happening, or is this kind of a left field thing for you?
It was kind of left field for me. He, so a couple years later, moving on, I've remarried, great guy. The boys have a good relationship with him. He's, Casey's really made good progress. He's working out. He's got friends. He's got a girlfriend. He's active. It's just like, you're just thinking we're going to be okay. Casey ends up getting a job out by his dad's house. So he's staying out there with him and don't notice anything, out of the ordinary, really. I mean, I didn't notice anything, but it happened when he was over at his dad's house. We were out of town and, and his dad couldn't get a hold of him. And so his dad called me and just said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I can't get a hold of him. He's not getting back to me."
So let's just pause the moment here because this is getting into some pretty scary stuff. You are about to find out like the worst news of your life, obviously. So how do you find out that this happened to Casey? Like, can you explain that moment for me? Because I've never been in your shoes. I don't know how this works. Who calls you? Who reaches out to you to tell you this news?
So this is, and obviously I won't forget this, but we were actually up in Pines and Strawberry. And I remember being in Safeway and I'd heard from my ex that he wasn't able to get a hold of Casey. And I remember being in Safeway up in Payson at this point, and I just stopped. I felt it in my stomach. I just knew. And I wasn't on the phone. I wasn't on with anybody. I just knew. And I didn't say anything to my husband. I couldn't because that would make it real. And we just kind of went on until we heard. And then as soon as my ex called my husband, I knew. And then we had to make the long drive back down to town. And it was awful. I mean, just awful.
How are your kids in this moment?
So my middle son was playing basketball in Vegas, and my youngest was at home with Casey. But Casey was in his room. And so Dylan didn't know what was going on. My ex-husband was working off duty at the time, and he so he had just come home and found out. So his brother came over and got my youngest, and got him out of the house before the paramedics came. And when I came down, I went right to my youngest, and then I told him, and I just felt he seemed like he was kind of in shock. I mean, he just didn't really seem to grasp it, you know? I mean, he was 9, you know, he's just so young. And I'm sorry, he was 12. And he was just didn't.
What do you remember from that night?
That night we drove all night up to Vegas.
What was that car ride like?
Just awful. It was like you'd forget for a few minutes, and then you'd remember, and then you'd forget, and then you'd remember. And I remember Brady coming down, you know, the elevator in the hotel, and you just don't want to tell him, because there's the before and then there's the after, when you're never going to be the same, you know, and you don't want to do that to your kid, because you can't ever make it better. And you know that you can't. You're going to tell them something that's just going to change their whole world from here on out. It was really hard. You know, my middle son Brady's just always been so into sports, and that's how he's always just been, always expressed himself that way, and just natural athlete. And they went to Arizona Lutheran Academy here in town, and his coaches there were so great, because this was the end of May when it happened. And so they had open gym, and his coaches there were just like, we're here, just send him in anytime he wants to just shoot hoops. And they did, you know, they would just go in there and let them just talk and shoot hoops. And it's that, again, that safe space for them to be okay. And, you know, and my youngest is just such an easygoing guy. He doesn't let a lot of it show, but one of the neatest things for me is that he's got the same laugh as Casey, and I love it. I love to hear it.
Do you remember, because I lost my dad, you know, when I was 23. And so there were a lot of things that I thought about along the way. And I thought, man, like, my dad didn't get to be at my wedding. My dad never met my kids. Were there, what kind of stuff do you play around with losing your child? What are the thoughts like that for you?
There's a lot like that. I think of, you know, when Brady turned 19 or 20, you know, that was hard, because I think, you know, then you go down that path of Casey's never going to be 20. Casey's never going to, you know, all of that. And we were at a wedding, cousin's kid's wedding, and it was like, I was a mess. And it was just like, you know, I mean, I'd been fine leading up to that, and I just couldn't hardly make it through the wedding. It was ridiculous. And it's the stuff of, they will not get to experience that, you know. It's all of the things that they won't get to experience. I mean, you know, I always wanted, you know, I wanted my kids to have all these, their kids, you know, I want to have grandkids, and all of their kids to have cousins, you know, and it's like, Casey's never going to have that. And it's just sad. It's just the things that they'll miss out on.
You bring up something that's hard, if not impossible, for anybody who's in this situation or will be. This idea that you're at this happy occasion, right? This family wedding, and you are having sad thoughts and sad memories. And there's this imbalance of I'm trying to be happy and I don't want to like bring the party down, you know?
Right.
And so we try to hold it in. How did you handle each of those moments? And maybe you've gotten better at handling it. I mean,
I think it's a matter of expect them and be pleasantly surprised if they don't happen, you know? Because it is kind of nice when they don't. And it's okay if they don't, because sometimes you feel guilty then if you're not sad.
there's no winning.
Right. There isn't, because I find that, there's times I can talk about Casey so nonchalantly and then I'm like, boy, I am, you feel almost cold-hearted about it. And it's not that, it's just, I've cried so much, but there's so much to be grateful for. And I think it is a matter of giving yourself permission to enjoy the moment, but it's also, if you cry, it's okay. I learned a lot with this, that I don't really care what people think of me in the grocery store, I really, really was way too concerned about that before. But all of a sudden, I'm the one crying down the aisles because Casey loved this. Oh my gosh, this was his favorite snack, and I don't get to buy it for him anymore. And, it'll get me. And it's the most ridiculous thing. But it'll get me and it'll stop me in my tracks and it'll hit me, not every time, of course, but it's 8 years later, but it's okay if it does. If somebody thinks I'm crazy, that's all right. That does not affect me anymore. It makes me a little more, nicer about the people that are falling apart in the next aisle,
Right.
But I don't want to make everybody else around me miserable either. So fall apart and get back to it,
Well, and I like this sharing of the story, because this to me is where the real freedom comes. I find most people that are really having a hard go of things, it's because they're keeping it all inside. And there's something really magical about putting it out into the consciousness and throwing it out there and saying the actual words. And it really does. And you're a bit on crying there. Listen, from what I can learn or have learned so far, that's necessary. You have to cry because it creates space for new energy and new emotions, and you have to shift that. So now I want to ask you, I think maybe one of the harder questions that I may ask you, which is, this happens to you. This event happens to you, right? Mm-hmm. And I can imagine that it would be really hard to live in that space for a pretty long time. I know I did when I lost my dad. Listen, I was the guy whose dad had just died for a long time. Mm-hmm. How were you in that space? And then how did you gently get out of it?
It was hard because I very much felt like, here's the mom whose son died. Yeah. And you feel like, and I'm not the one who, look at me, please, do not look at me. Do not draw attention to me. Do not. Not comfortable with that at all. And so I realized too, a lot of that was probably in my mind. Maybe not, but I think it did feel like a lot that people were avoiding me, because what do you say to somebody like me? And that's okay. I realized that I wouldn't have known what to say to me either. I probably would have avoided myself, somebody like me. And so I've learned that to not avoid people like me. I've learned to get over that, because I appreciate the people who have said to me, Karie, I haven't wanted to say anything because I don't want to bring them up and make you sad. And I've said, you will never make me sad by bringing Casey up. You will make me sad if you don't bring him up. And the fact of the matter is, you can't make me any more sad than I already am. I miss him, period. I can't miss him any more than I do. Yeah. I miss hearing his name. So if you bring it up, great. If it brings tears to my eyes, that's not a bad thing. That's okay.
Okay, here's the second hardest question of the day. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
What did Casey teach you?
He was one of the nicest guys I knew. He was just kind. He's taught me to be more open. I think I told you my natural inclination is just to hole up. I'm real good at hanging out at home with my dogs and a good book, but that's not always what's best for me. Sometimes it is, but there's times that I need to reach out. I need to talk about things, and I need to make sure that I'm getting the help I need. And but I think that that's the thing, is I have to be more open to being more open, which is why I'm talking to you guys.
I just think it's so beautiful. I mean, I hate that it's podcast because hugs are due. They are. Well,
and it's funny you bring that up. And this is going to sound like weird advice considering we're doing a podcast where we're talking about the stuff. But honestly, sometimes words are overrated. Karie, you mentioned multiple things. You would have gone back. You would have just sat with him, right? Or the coach opened up the gym so he can go shoot. There was no talking involved. Right. People are afraid to approach you because they don't know what to say. And sometimes we don't actually have to say anything. Sometimes we need to sit there. Sometimes we need a ball. Sometimes we need a hug. And there doesn't actually have to be words every single time.
Right. That's exactly it. Being there, just being there.
Mm-hmm.
Our final question as we wrap up today is, I have this saying, Karie, that I love, which is, it didn't happen to you, it happened for you. So what have you learned about yourself since losing your son?
I figured out I'm a lot stronger than I ever thought I was, because my mom just said this to me a couple weeks ago. She said, I didn't think you were going to make it through. And I thought about that, and I thought, I never really had any doubt that I would. There were days I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
But I remember the pain and the grief being so heavy and painful, and actually having to remember to breathe sometimes, just to breathe. That but that's been a while, and I'm a lot stronger than I ever thought I would be, and ever thought I'd ever wanted to be, but I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm here, and I'm moving forward, and I'm enjoying life. That's the thing. I am, and I know I don't have to worry about Casey anymore. He's safe. I think one of the nicest things that was ever said to me was by a pastor who said to me that, we get our kids baptized, and, and not many parents get the privilege of seeing the ultimate fulfillment of having their kids get to heaven, and seeing that in their lifetime. And I was privileged enough to get to see that happen. And, when I think of it that way, okay.
Yeah. You're making me cry. That's a very beautiful thought.
Yeah.
A really sweet thought.
Yeah.
Oh, Karie, love you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, both of you.
Okay. Good cry. It's good. I moved some space.
Feelings are good.
One more thing.
Yes.
Just because it starts tonight, I now lead, this is so out of my comfort zone, but for the past year, I've been leading a grief share group at our church. And it starts up again tonight for this semester. And it's just, when they talk about that purpose for the pain, it's like, this is why, there's to know that there's other people that go through this, like you've talked about. It's like, yeah. Oh, that's a normal feeling. And oh my gosh, because you think that you're just like crazy when you go through this stuff. And I shouldn't say crazy, but it's.
Well, we know what you mean. I know what you mean. Yeah, your head's all over the place.
We all question our own sanity sometimes. Absolutely.
Crazy's a good word for it, right? I actually think crazy's a good word for it. I don't know how else to explain it. It feels crazy to me. I don't know how else to explain it. The head's everywhere.
It is everywhere,
But I think it's great that you're doing that. That's so awesome. When my dad died, my mom actually kind of started getting involved in widows groups, and it ended up being like such a cool thing for her to really kind of heal her up a little bit too.
Mm-hmm. I dread it every Wednesday when it comes around, and it's like, oh no, now it's here, and then I love it. I mean, I love it's a good group. It's just it's hard. It's too bad that we need them, but
yeah, but it's a lot better to walk through with other people. There's no question about it.
I love that it scares you though.
You do.
That's my favorite part, because there's so much good stuff that happens on the other side of stepping into something that scares the crap out of you.
Yeah.
Getting on this call today with us.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. It did. I tried not to think about it all day.
Good luck with that. I thought about it all day.
Me too.
I thought about it all day. All right. Well, if I can support you in any way, Karie, please let me know. And I'm sure it goes both ways. And like I said, I'll be in.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All right. Much love. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Dr. Frank Bavacqua, what stands out from that conversation to you?
It's interesting, no matter how many different stories we hear, different people living different lives with different experiences, not just a death, but there's so many things that happen that we all experience in our own way, right? Whether that's, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to reach out to. Other people didn't know what to do around me. I didn't get the support that I needed. I
think what you're keying into is whether it's somebody passed away or it's a divorce or it's a weird situation, that those things happen to all of us in almost all situations. People don't know how to talk to us. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that, even the idea that sometimes when we're trying to deal with those moments, we feel crazy, right? Or that we'll never be the same again, or we'll never be holding it, right? All these things go through our minds, and we think that we're the only ones in that moment that feels that way. And it's not true. And it's unfortunate that we all have to experience those things sometimes, or that we do. But almost never are you the only one to ever think a certain thing or feel a certain way.
I'll tell you what stood out for me was that last dagger she threw at me. I didn't see that coming. And I grew up in the church. I'm not an overly religious person right now, but boy, do I have a strong appreciation for people that are and have a strong faith. Mm-hmm. And I would have to imagine that, as she said, like being able to see your son cross over, that was my moment. That's powerful.
Yeah.
To find that bit of gratitude in that moment,
right,
is something special.
Yeah, I mean, call it whatever you call it a silver lining, call it a positive reframe. I mean, you can put whatever fancy term you want on it. But yeah, when there is something positive, and sometimes it almost feels guilty to enjoy a positive thing, because there is so much sadness in the positive thing. Like we almost feel bad that there's a positive in there, but it's necessary.
Listen, your story can own you, or you can own your story. Mm-hmm. And it takes a while to crawl out of that space, because you know me, it took me a long time. I don't want to discount how long it's going to take you, me, or the next person to crawl out of that space. But the only thing that matters is that you crawl out. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing that matters, is that you crawl out of it, owning you. And whatever that means for you, if it's sharing it, I always say on our podcast, we have 3 goals: help you not feel alone, encourage you to go seek some therapy, coaching, a church, whatever that means for you. And then finally, when you're ready and you feel like you're on the other side, come and talk to us and share your story with us.
Right. Because the next person is going to need to hear yours.
That's the truth, right? Yeah. How many people heard Karie today and went, holy shit.
Yeah.
I didn't want to swear because she's a good Christian girl. But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That happened today.
I mean, this theme came up with her a couple of times, this idea of sort of sitting in the sadness. A lot of times we avoid the sadness. We try to avoid it with ourselves. We try to avoid it with other people. It's messy. It's yucky. It's not fun. When somebody else comes to us and they're sad, what is the first thing we usually try to do? Because we're good people. So when somebody comes to us and they're sad, what is the first thing that we try to do?
Make them happy.
We try to make them happy. We try to make it better. And we talk about guys sort of being really bad. We want to fix stuff. Mm-hmm.
I think she might have given us a little crap for that.
Yeah. And I'll
own it too.
I'm a fixer. It's hard. It's hard not to. It is because we are good, helpful people. I like to think we're good, helpful people. Right. And we want to fix, we don't want to see someone that we care about be sad. And yet we actually rob people from something really important when we just try to cheer them up. It's funny. I think back to my training when I first started to learn how to do therapy. And one of the first things that was pointed out is something as simple as if somebody's sitting across from you and they start talking about a sad memory and they start to cry, the worst thing you can do is hand them a tissue, which seems totally
so counterintuitive.
Right. Absolutely.
But I like it. I think I know where you're headed.
Right. The idea is me handing you that tissue subconsciously says, like, wipe that mess away, right? Like, I'm not comfortable here, or it's gross, it's yucky, I don't like it. Which is obviously not our intention in that moment. And yet sitting there and just letting the snot run is literally better for that. But they'll reach for they can see it on the table just as well, right?
They'll grab it when they need it.
And just being okay with sitting in the crap is the best thing that we can do for ourselves. It's the best thing that we can do for somebody else who's going through whatever.
Let's talk about this idea that when you're feeling good and when things are going good, to be, going with it, and then the opposite.
You mentioned before that one of the goals of what we're trying to do is that encouraging people who they've been through something and they've come out sort of on the other side, and we want them to come share their story with us and with a whole lot of other people. I think people have different ideas about what being on the other side means. It definitely doesn't mean I never get sad about it anymore. It definitely doesn't mean I never cry about it or I never think about it. There can still be whole days where it's a struggle. And that doesn't mean that you're not past the worst of it. But that may never stop. But, she said something great at the end. It's been years since I had to remind myself to breathe, right? Breathing has returned to just being like an unconscious normal thing now, which is a great indication that she is and yet she still got sad multiple times with us, and we got sad with her.
Sure.
And that's okay. That doesn't mean that we're going backwards at all.
We should touch on another part of this thing which is, she lost a child,
yeah,
and had other kids that she had to deal with.
Right.
You mentioned before that you've seen it in the past where some people can kind of forget about those other kids.
Yeah. It's, people joke about I shouldn't say joke. People talk about a mother being the hardest job in the world. And I don't want that job. It's real hard. And for her to be in a situation where she is simultaneously looking for support, but still has other people relying on her for support too, that's real hard. And so there can be those situations where she has lost a child. Literally, I think the saddest thing that we can think of that can happen, right? And there's a lot that goes with that. And yet there are still two, in this case, other kids that are still here. And we can't forget about that. I say she can't forget about that. And it didn't sound like she did.
No, it sounded like she does she's very aware, very in tune.
Right. And I think she went the route maybe of, I kind of let Casey be, and maybe I let him be too much. Maybe I should have been in there more. And maybe she used that to remind herself to be in with her other two more. But I know that there are people out there, they lose somebody, and no matter who the survivors are, at some point they're like, but I'm still here, but we're still here. It's not easy. It's not easy. And there's no perfect way to do it, but it's something for people to remember, to think about.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing from you is just an encouraging thought that if you're in that space, if that's how you feel right now, if it's getting hard to dad up on your other dudes or mom up on your other kids, it's time for help. It's time to ask for help. And that can look so different. That's what we say. We don't use the word only therapy, only coaching. All the things are open. Find a church, find a friend, find whatever you can to support you. That's just find that person, find that group. And then, but get the help now, because as much as you think you holding it together is the good thing for the family.
I think one of the I hesitate to use the word easiest, but one of maybe the simplest things you can do is just play hooky. I'm calling out of work today. I'm calling you out of school today, because we need a day, right? Where it's just us. We're gonna do. We may not talk about anything, but we're just gonna go be together. Sometimes playing hooky is the best thing you can do.
I wanna end on this thought right there, which is what you just said, and I absolutely love it. Let me just tie a little bow tie on it like this. It's like, for years after my father died, I did and do and did and do. And what I finally learned was at one point I need to stop and be. And that was okay.
Not only okay, it was probably the best thing you could have done.
Saved my life. Yeah. Saved my life.
We have 3 goals with Learn from People Who Lived It. 1. To help you feel less alone. 2. Encourage you to seek out a coach, a therapist, a church, anyone who can help you get through your journey and find some healing. 3. When you're ready, share your story with us.